It might not feel like it, but the Nintendo Switch has been out for a long time now. I don't know about you, but it doesn't feel like 6 or 7 years ago that I was getting my Switch for the first time, picking up what became early favourites like Breath of the Wild or Mario Odyssey, and then trying out new games, things like Fire Emblem Warriors and, well, properly returning Fire Emblem Warriors when I realised it wasn't for me. I'm sorry to any Fire Emblem Warriors fans out there. Today though, I want to reflect back on the 6 or 7 years of hybridy goodness that we've had with the Switch and talk about what I think are possibly my all-time favourite Switch games on the system. Just a quick note, these are all Switch exclusive games. That wasn't originally intentional, but it just happens to be how it's worked out, so they are all exclusive. So let's go! So we're starting with one that I enjoyed a lot at the time, but I fell off slightly and I do wish I'd played more of, and that's Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. See, for those Fire Emblem Warriors fans, I did like at least one Warriors style game. Age of Calamity caught my attention, and for a while it became the game that I picked up when I wasn't sure what else I wanted to play. I'm not always a Warriors fan, I have to be honest, but in this case the Zelda name did get me interested, and the missions were just the right length and they were gripping enough to slot in between playing other stuff. It didn't run perfectly, sure, but there was just so much to do: characters, weapon options, special weapon types, and I was kind of getting into the story as well. Unfortunately for Hyrule Warriors, it just came out at the wrong time. It kind of came out around the same time as something else. It was something big though, I can't remember what it could have been. Oh, that's right, it was the PlayStation 5. And I managed to get one of those pretty early, and I think understandably once I did get one, Hyrule Warriors kind of was left behind while I got completely stuck into Miles Morales. But I did still enjoy Hyrule Warriors enough to give it a place on this list, and I would like to go back to it at some point. Monster Hunter and I have an on-again, off-again relationship. One of my most played games on the PSP was Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, and as my 3DS will show you, for about a year of my younger life, I was completely in love with Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. Now, later games in this series, like Generations and World, they didn't really hook me for some reason, I'm not sure why, but Rise did. Rise brought me right back. I think it was the new movement options. They cancelled out one of my biggest complaints of the series, which was how sluggish it could feel to play sometimes. Wire bugs and the Palamute just made it an absolute joy, and I worked my way through the initial story of that game pretty quickly, often playing with a friend alongside me as well. I did end up stopping when I got to the end of the story because at that point I wasn't really ready to go super deep into endgame Monster Hunter, but I will fondly remember playing through some casual Rise missions for quite a long time, and I'm quite excited to see where the series goes next. So the Metroid series is another one that I played a little bit years and years back, but I haven't played very much since. As a much younger gamer, I got pretty far into Metroid Fusion on the Game Boy Advance, but it was a bit intense and a bit scary, especially this one part I remember where you're being followed by the villain of the game, and I just eventually stopped playing. I did want to try Samus Returns, but I didn't get a chance, so I jumped right into Dread the day that it came out. And the gameplay is just so slick, isn't it? Similar to Rise, the movement options just help the game feel so fluid. And while that game is intense like Metroid Fusion, but grown-up me could handle it. Finding each new power-up was thrilling, and finally beating bosses that I'd been struggling with for a while gave me the sense of achievement that I can only imagine Dark Souls players must feel. I only played it all the way through once, that was kind of enough for me. The way it ended did leave me with plenty of questions that I'm hoping will be answered in a follow-up. And I think Mercury Steam have done really well with this Metroid game, and the next time they put out a Metroid game, I will pick that up and follow them while they tell their Metroid story. I never had a Wii U, and so whenever a Wii U game has been ported over to the Switch, I've been quite interested to see what they are about. By the time Super Mario 3D World came over, I'd already played Mario Odyssey and I was kind of itching to get me some more Mario. And honestly, what a Mario game to play next. You can go as fast or as slow as you like. The game is challenging, but it's not too challenging. The levels are just so diverse. You can go from riding on Plessie in a fun casual level to fighting Bowser on a train in something a bit more intense. And in fact, I don't really remember there being many levels, if any levels, that I didn't have fun playing. As somebody who hasn't really been into Mario too much before the Switch, the game is honestly, it just feels like pure fun. It doesn't waste your time, it doesn't have any filler garbage or any of that other stuff that plague more modern AAA titles. You just have a good time and you come away feeling happy, and then you go back whenever you want. Well, until the hidden bonus worlds anyway. They really tested my platforming skills, and I don't think I managed to play all of them before I decided to put it down. Still though, I had an absolute blast with the game, and I would recommend it to everybody, and that's why it's made it on this list. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be wondering why Breath of the Wild isn't further up this list, and I'm really sorry. I did really like the game, but I'm not one of those players that put hundreds and thousands of hours in. I played it for what I consider to be kind of a normal amount, in fact quite a lot of hours for me as I tend to bounce around games a lot. But what can I say about Breath of the Wild that hasn't already been said? I'm sure it's the Kickstarter to what made Switch the crazy popular console that it is today, I really am. Exploring the world, finding secrets, unlocking puzzles, piecing together the story, and being able to do all of it at your own pace and in whatever order you want, it's just magical. I will definitely be picking up Tears of the Kingdom on day one, and I can't wait to dive back into that world and see what improvements and new innovations they make with it. So I've briefly mentioned this one already, but I'm sure you knew it would be on this list anyway. I didn't get a Switch on initial release, it was only as Mario Odyssey was coming out that I managed to get my hands on one, so naturally that means that Odyssey was one of the first games I played. And I've got to say, New Donk City still holds a place in my heart as one of my favourite levels in any video game ever. Odyssey's worlds are just so varied and they're always fun and interesting to discover more of. And the new Cappy mechanic was such a genius inclusion that you've got to wonder why they never did it before. It opens up so many different ways to play. Once you've beaten certain story parts in a world, the freedom to progress by unlocking moons from whichever world you choose was really just the best way that they could possibly have done it. It's really a good example of a game that doesn't waste your time, you know, it lets you play however you want, and it's just aimed at bringing you back by having fun, not by making you feel like you're going to miss out on something. I'm honestly really surprised we haven't had any word of a sequel, but who knows, maybe this year will be the year that something is announced. The opening soundtrack to Animal Crossing will forever make me feel nostalgic. This game came out at the perfect time, it helped a lot of people through a tough period and was probably the game that I've played most with my partner. For all of these reasons, this game will always be something special to me. Now, I'd never actually played an Animal Crossing game before, and I didn't really think I'd get it, but I did, I definitely did. I put way more time into it than I expected, swapping stories with my partner, visiting each other's islands, helping us unlock items, and showing each other our villages, the cute things they were doing. I can remember it took us ages to find pears, neither of us could get pears, that took such a long time, but when we finally did it and we swapped over a pear, we were so happy. And because everybody seemed to be playing it at the same time, there were just so many conversations online to read about, fun things to watch. It really was like a giant worldwide shared experience. That first year of the game's release, each time a seasonal event came around, like the rest of the world, we were so eager to dive in and see what had changed, and each new update provided us with even more fun. It's just a shame that the game ended the way it did, with the recycled events and old mechanics taking ages to be introduced, so it kind of meant that by the time the Happy Home Paradise DLC came around, I'd mostly moved on due to a lack of new content. But I do often get a longing to go back to when this game was exciting for us all, and maybe a new Animal Crossing will have the same effect, maybe not, but New Horizons definitely holds a place in my heart forever. So for a lot of these games, I've said that I was on and off again with the series, or that I didn't really get into them until the Switch. That is definitely not the case for Pokemon. Pokemon Yellow is actually the first game I ever remember owning myself and really getting into. I put hundreds of hours into Pokemon Yellow, and I've played every single mainline game in the series since then. I've not always finished them, sure, but each time I have picked them up and had a go. Now, Pokemon on the Switch was weird before Arceus, wasn't it? I mean, the Let's Go games didn't really do it for me at all. Then we had Sword and Shield, which I did really enjoy, and I played that one a lot, but it wasn't quite the leap forward that we were all hoping Pokemon was going to take on the Switch. And then it was followed up by Diamond and Pearl remakes, which, yeah, I mean, the less said about those, the better, don't you think? Enter Pokemon Legends Arceus. There's a reason that this game is in my top list of last year. I had an absolute blast playing it. I didn't think the catching mechanic would be for me, I really wasn't sure, but now that it's not in Scarlet and Violet, I actually do really miss it. And exploring open zones for the first time really had an incredible feel to it. Watching the Pokemon go about their natural behaviour, deciding whether to catch them or sneak by, being scared of the alpha Pokemon, that feeling, there was actually a feeling of danger in that game. I won't repeat a lot of the things that I said previously, but the only aspect that I wasn't keen on was how gated the content was, which thankfully hasn't repeated in the newer game actually. I'm currently playing through Pokemon Violet, and it is fast becoming another of my favourite games. Sure, performance on the Switch isn't great, but that aside, I am really enjoying it. And Arceus was the catalyst for what makes Violet good though. Exploring new styles of gameplay paved the way, and I'm really excited to see where Pokemon goes over the next few years thanks to this game. So kind of unexpectedly, Fire Emblem Three Houses very quickly became one of my most played games on the Nintendo Switch. Way back on the GBA, I was an Advanced Wars fan. By the way, where on earth is Advanced Wars? Come on, Nintendo, bring it out. And I really liked that style of gameplay, but I only really got into Fire Emblem Awakening. That was my first Fire Emblem game, and I didn't really play many of the others, if I'm honest. I did pick up a couple of the other 3DS ones, but I didn't get super into them. Three Houses though had such a good mix. It had great gameplay, it had great characters, and the characters had development that made sense and it made you love them. Now I know that the gameplay in the temple was sort of hit with mixed reception. Some people loved how it opened up the relationships and others thought it was too much and it was a bit tedious and it was annoying that you had to do it, you know, you were kind of forced to do it. For me, I sort of fall somewhere in the middle. I quite enjoyed it the first time, but running around the temple between each mission is actually kind of what turned me off doing multiple runs to play through each of the different houses. I did really enjoy the first run or two that I did though. I got really hooked on the story and I got really hooked on building up characters to become unstoppable war machines, picking which classes they would be, equipping them, that kind of thing. Because of how much I liked this game, I did think I'd be very keen to get Fire Emblem Engage, but something about the trailers hasn't quite hooked me yet as much as I thought. I think by the time you're watching this though, it will be out, so there's a chance I might have picked it up already, and if the gameplay is as fun as Three Houses, then I know I'll be having a great time with it. And finally, there can only be one favourite. One game that is, I think, the perfect game of its genre. Mario Kart 8 is that game. I don't think you'll ever catch me at a time when I would turn down a race or two of Mario Kart. It's just so fun to pick up, races often lead to more races, and playing together with friends just heightens that so much. Most of the time I play this online with some old friends from school, and our races are just a mad mix of silly fun and being competitive. We laugh so much at the crazy things that happen in every race, speeding along to some of the best pieces of music in gaming. Honestly, the soundtracks for some of the different tracks are just incredible. And on top of that, new content has constantly been coming over the last half year and the next year. We didn't need a new Mario Kart. More tracks was absolutely the way to go in my opinion. And a lot of these new tracks actually didn't play their original versions, so they feel brand new to me, which is great. At the time of recording, we've had 24 new tracks, which already feels like a really big number, but we're actually getting another 24 left to come this year. And the spacing between each wave, I think, works really well for me. Just as I'm starting to have enough of the most recent wave, then a new one is announced and the excitement comes through all over again. I said it about Mario 3D World, but Mario Kart 8 is just pure fun, no fluff, just a great time to be had every single time you play it. It is the game that I have put the most time into on the Switch for sure, and you know, thanks to the DLC that's continuously coming, I will be playing it all the way throughout this year. And so there we have it, those are my favourite all-time games on the Nintendo Switch. Looking back on it, it really is quite an incredible list of games, isn't it? And I don't even think that the Switch is done, it might not even have hit its peak. With exclusives like Tears of the Kingdom and Pikmin coming out this year, and I'm sure there will be plenty of games Nintendo announce early in the year to come out later in the year, sort of fall, winter time. So I think if we came back and we did this list again next year, even next year, it might be completely different. But how about you? What are some of your favourite Nintendo Switch games? Do let me know in the comments below and we can get some conversations going. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do like and subscribe if you did and you want to see more videos like this. Thanks again, and I hope to see you in the next video.